Happy Monday, my degenerate gamblers. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, your boy Clint, coming back to you on another Monday. And anybody get the name of the bus that went through this place last week? Holy crap. UFC 280 was a fun show, everybody. Absolutely high-level MMA. Had a good time watching some of those fights, but damn, did that sting on the betting side of things for your boy. Not feeling too great right now. It was supposed to be my big comeback. Looking back on some of the bets I made, you could argue I had value. The Omar Gadzhiev submission line, he tried his ass off trying to get that sub for me. I feel like a point should have been deducted. Probably should have been a push on the money line there. But, you know, what are you going to do if the referee doesn't call and take a point? It is what it is. And I'm a little behind. Started chipping my way back into it. Got the live bet on Bilal. Got the live bet on O'Malley. I'm like, all right, like we're not dead here. We're not dead here. TJ Dillashaw goes into the fight with a completely blown up shoulder. I planted my damn flag, man. I told everybody, every show I went on, screaming from the rooftops, TJ Dillashaw's the side. Boy, that's the kind of injury you wish you had a little bit of inside information about, because it could, obviously we don't know how the fight was going to play out. Maybe he loses to Aljo anyway, but I wasn't dead. I had a shot with my big hammer on TJ, and that was dead on arrival. You cannot fight a fighter the level of Aljamain Sterling with one arm. I don't care who you are. It's not going to happen. So buried at UFC 280. At any rate, the best part about this gig is we got a new week. We got some new fights to talk about. This week, obviously not the kind of star power as last week, but we will make a go of it. We've got Dream in the chat. Bufo on the beat. Mushroom, what's up, buddy? We've got Nolan Graff. We've got Joshua Teneda looking at the Chase Hooper round one. I like it. Grateful dude. We've got Bob in the house. Dr. Elijah True, the MMA propaholic. MMA Locker Room, what's up, my dude? How's everybody doing? Addicted to Combat, Victor to Jesus, Victor Jesus, sorry about that, Evan Campbell, Tommy Unders, Anthony Cabrera, Z Goalie, CT710, everybody's rolling on in here. How's everybody doing? Do me a favor, smash the like button. We appreciate you guys. I will take just a quick moment to highlight my guy here, MMA Locker Room. You may notice a shiny little badge next to his name, a highlight next to his name. That's because right here at Pub Sports Radio, we're doing our best to continue bringing you the best betting content under the sun for free. We have offered a subscription mode. Our subscribers, there's going to be perks. There's going to be additional content for our subscribers. You may ask, Clint, what exactly do I get if I subscribe? And my answer to you, my friends, is I don't know yet. They just launched this thing, and we are going to be providing some additional perks to the people who support us by subscribing monthly. A lot of us have already jumped in. So if you like our show, if you like the content, and if you want to support us here at Pub Sports Radio, the best thing that you can do to help us keep the lights on and keep the content rolling is hit that little subscribe button for a monthly subscription. So thank you all very much. Ethiopians asking, did you pick Olives? I did not. I was on the fence on the main event. I said my heart was with Charles Oliveira and my brain was on Islam Makhachev. Stayed off it. No bet. So wishing I had gone with the brain right about now. That was a hell of a fight, though. I just wanted to see some violence from a fan perspective on that one. Andy G, what's up? All right, everybody, it's about time to get into the show. We do have a bit of a shorter card for you this evening, so probably a little bit quicker of a show, but no guarantees, because my guest this evening is someone who, yeah, me and him tend to have a good time chatting. So, you know, as much as we'd like to keep it tight, it almost never happens. My guy from Half the Battle, Dan Levy, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing amazing, man. You know, always a pleasure to talk fights with you. Got a very lively chat as always. And I mean, for everyone shitting on this card, I feel like, it's the same recurring theme over and over. Oh my God, how can Durden and Zhao Nan be a main event? That ends up being a fucking great fight. I'm
Yep.
telling you right now, Calvin Kattar versus Arnold Allen is one of the best fights you can make in the featherweight division. And hey, there's some up and coming prospects on this card. And at the end of the day, are we gamblers or not? And if the answer is yes, well, let's make some money. So let's get down to business, my friend.
That's right. And even if we're not gamblers, if you're here on this show, we're diehards, baby. Like, we're gonna watch
That
any
as well.
UFC
That
card.
too.
We're gonna be looking for any fights we can get our hands on. And like you mentioned, man, these small cards, they always deliver. Somebody slips up, there's a big knockout. We get some viral trending stuff. Like, it's still gonna be a good weekend.
I look forward to it always. I mean, if there's a card on and I got some bets made, not to mention, I mean, you're telling me that grown men and women are going to get into a fist fight on a Saturday night inside a steel cage. I'm in. So say less.
That's what's up, Dan. Let's get right on into it. Hey, as you guys know, first and foremost, obviously, we're here on Pub Sports Radio. They are my host. They are my main sponsor. The show is brought to you by Superbook Sports. If you want a legal US-based regulated site over there with excellent lines and numbers, head on over to Superbook Sports. Thank them very much every single week for supporting the show and bringing it to you all. All right, everybody, we are going to jump straight into this first fight of the night, and it's a good one. Dan, my guy, can't wait to talk about this one with you. Cody Durden taking on Carlos Mota. This is a late fill-in fight, folks. Cody Durden was already slated to be here on this card. However, he lost his opponent. Carlos Mota is jumping in on short notice. And I'll be honest with you all, I have not had the opportunity to run the tape yet on Mota. It's a name I'm familiar with. It's a guy that a lot of people in the industry have had their eyes on, but I haven't had a chance to really dive deep in and do my study.
You got to do your fucking homework.
So I'm coming in here without doing my homework. I'm a little short-staffed here, looking for Dan to maybe help me out, because we all know Durden brings that wrestling pressure, looking to get on top of his opponents and likes to drag them to the floor. He's not half bad on the feet as well, pretty well-rounded, but still got some stuff to prove, in my opinion. I'm not 1,000% sold on Cody Durden. Dan, talk to me about this first fight of the night, man. What do you know? What are you thinking about this one?
Well, firstly, my boy Clint's known about this fight for a couple days now. I know everybody found out today, but my
you're just
boy
gonna out
Clint,
me, huh?
my boy Clint's known about this fight since last week. You're welcome, but nah, man. I mean, listen, this is a great matchup. I mean, this kid Carlos Mota, he's the kind of guy that paid his dues on his regional scene at LFA, won the belt over there. You want to see some vicious knockouts, you go throw on the tape for Carlos Mota. Knocked out a Russian his last fight. His only loss is against the guy who's currently in the UFC, Charles Johnson. So, I mean, what I see from Carlos Mota is I see a Brazilian berserker with nasty power in his hands, man. I think that he's capable of knocking anybody out, especially let alone in the flyweight division, where you don't often see that many one-punch knockouts. I mean, unless we're talking about, Davis and Figueiredo, but I think this is one of these guys that can come out here and get a bunch of highlight reels. So you got to love it just as a fan. But I think Cody Durden's a guy that's been paying his dues, man. I mean, when you talk about anytime, any place, anywhere, Cody Durden's a guy that fought Chris Gutierrez on a week short notice. He was eating chicken wings and pizza and beer. They give him the call, hey, you want to fight Chris Gutierrez up a weight class on, 5 days short notice? And he didn't have to be like, let me ask my wife what let me ask my coach. He's like, yes, period. That's the kind of guy he is. He's a true competitor. And in every single UFC fight he's had, minus the Mokaev fight, which, by the way, what balls to go to Mokaev's backyard to fight him, with the reputation that kid had coming into the UFC. So I think that Cody Durden's had moments in all of his fights, minus the Mokaev fight. The Chris Gutierrez fight, 10-8s him in the first round. And this is on a week notice when the guy was, eating wings and drinking beer. Next fight against Flick, I know he got caught with a very low percentage move, but he was whooping on Flick prior to that against Arichi Lang. Arichi Lang is one of the heaviest hitters in that division, and that boy is big. for flyweight. He had to move up to bantamweight, and he's still dropping dudes at bantamweight. So, I mean, I thought that Cody Durden had to dig deep, because the question's always been like, yeah, we know Cody Durden can finish fights early, but what happens when fights get extended? And it was 1-1 going in that third round, and Cody Durden bit down on that mouthpiece and made it count in that last round. So I like that. And then when he got a step down in competition against JP Buys, he handled him accordingly, like a step down in competition. So I think there's going to be an honest fight. I think the dynamic is, listen, you got to look out for the explosive knockout power of a guy like Carlos Mota, and Carlos Mota could potentially finish the fight early. Cody's been caught before, but the places that I've seen Mota have issues is, you know, when you start to really push his gas tank, when you start to pin him up against the fence, when you start to mix in wrestlings, when you start to not wilt by his big power shots, you start to extend the fight. And that's where I think Cody Durden pulls away. So the odds actually open -145 for Cody Durden, which, interestingly enough, Clint, the 2 times that Cody Durden's won a fight in the UFC, Vegas actually opened him -145 against Orichi Lang, against JP Buys, and guess what? They opened him up here -145 again. Public came in and flipped the line, so now I'm looking at +160, and it's only available in one book. Let me get to the point where it's available in multiple books, and I think we get a +180, a +200 on Cody Durden, and I'm interested at that point. I know the dangers Mota brings to the table, but it's a risk I'm willing to take, so I'm rolling the dice on Cody Durden here.
I like it, Dan. I really do. Now, I've got to do my due diligence over there and get in my tape study on Mota. Like you said, you outed me. I was hoping keep it between podcasters. Yeah, Dan let me know that this was coming down the pipe a couple of days ago. Unfortunately, I'd already gotten to the point where I wrapped up my study and I had a birthday party to go to this weekend, so didn't get there yet. I will. Honestly, the way things have gone, this line got smoked. Mota opened up +125, and it's just hand over fist. He's -185 right now. Books over here in the States don't even have this lineup yet, and he's nearing -200. So with that kind of a swing, the market is telling these people the line was off in the first place. How off? We have to ask. How off is too off, and do we take a shot on the dog on the other side? Kind of the only way you can look at this point, unless you think Mota is just going to absolutely smoke Cody Durden, and not many people just absolutely smoke Cody Durden. So yeah, I'm going to take a real close look at this one. I'll be interested to see where this line settles, and got to do the homework. But yeah, if that gas tank is a problem, you can expect Cody Durden to try to put this kid through the ringer and expose it.
Definitely a possibility.
We'll see what happens. Real quick, everybody, I do want to give a shout out. My guy Razor Sharp Picks hanging out here in the chat. Appreciate the support from my guy. Hey, you guys know me. If I can't put money in your pockets, I'm going to do my very best to bring you people who will put money in your pockets. And that guys like my boy Dan over here, and especially Razor Sharp Picks. He's one of the personalities here at Pub Sports Radio, and he's been on one hell of a heater. I retweet his shit damn near daily because he's just posting win after win in all sports. His MLB season has been ridiculous. Check out Razor Sharp Picks here at Pub Sports Radio if you haven't already, and give him a follow over on social media. Next fight up, we're talking Roman Dolidze taking on Phil Hawes. And Dan, this is a fight that I got to walk it back. I got to walk it back just a little bit, because Phil Hawes is a guy who I successfully faded with my guy Chris the Action Man Curtis. Big plus numbers. Absolutely loved it. But I've talked maybe a little too much shit about Mr. Phil Hawes. He's a guy that I marked as a fade, a guy that I thought, late in his career, maybe a little durability question mark that you don't like to see, a wrestler who can gas out and be vulnerable late in the fight. All these things, I'm like, we're going to get good money fading this guy. And we did with Chris Curtis. But now he's moved camps. Phil Hawes is training over, I believe, at Kill Cliff FC these days, and he looks like a new man, Dan. His last fight, he looked much improved. Now, I don't know that necessarily you're going to shake those durability questions, but his heart, his will to be in the fight looked much better. His fight IQ looked much better. Granted, he was fighting Deron Wynn, a man who he had like a full foot-long reach advantage over, and nothing but a pure wrestler, essentially. But I did severely underestimate Phil Hawes, even in that fight. I'm pretty sure I bet on Deron Wynn that night because I thought that Deron would be able to have some success in the wrestling and bring out that gassy, the gassy Phil Hawes that we'd seen there in the past. Now he's taking on Roman Dolidze. a guy who comes from Georgia, and you know how these men are built, Dan. He is never going to stop. He's never going to quit, but another questionable fight IQ type of guy. You know, the coach, you want me to submit him moment will be legendary for us breakdown and analyst guys to talk about for years to come. Solid submissions coming off that brutal head kick knockout. So we know he's got power. Another guy who I question the gas tank, but even when he gets gassed, he somehow finds a way to fight redlined. Like, even when this guy is just completely out of energy, he finds a way to dig deep and stay in that fight and is still dangerous. So I feel like I've walked it back on my critiques of Mr. Phil Hawes, but at the same time, he's got a guy in front of him who I don't really want to bet against right now, the way things are going. So where do you line up on this side of things? Do we think Phil Hawes is having a resurgence thanks to his win over the shortest man in the division, or are we going with the Georgian Warrior here this weekend, Dan?
No, I don't view any resurgence. I think that Phil Hawes has been wrongly criticized since day one. You got to put this into perspective, my man. When a guy that's only 4-1 is fighting Julian Marquez, a guy that's only 4-0 is fighting Lewis Taylor, the PFL champ. He was only 3-0 fighting Andrew Sanchez on the Ultimate Fighter. Like, you just got rushed to fights that he, quite frankly, wasn't ready for. We're going to talk about a similar theme when we talk about Tresean Gore here in a little bit. But now that you've let this guy pay his dues a little bit, I mean, look at the guys he's beat. The Jacob Malkoons, who's doing amazing right now. The Nasruddin Imavov's top 15 guy. Kyle Dawkins, pretty solid talent there. So here's the thing about Phil Hawes. Phil Hawes has literally everything I want in a fighter except a chin. I mean, physical specimen, check. D1 wrestling, check. One punch knockout power, check. If this guy had a chin, I mean, I think he'd be a top 10 guy right now. So that's the big issue, because one thing about Dolidze, we know about his leg locks and this and that. I don't think he's going to get no leg lock here. If he does that, he's giving up position, but he's got some knockouts on his resume too. I mean, not only against Ibrahimov, but most recently against Dawkins, this guy can crack. So, I mean, I think Phil Hawes is going to be winning this entire fight until he either gets his arm raised or until he gets knocked out. So that's the dynamic here. The minutes are going to be won by Phil Hawes. I think Phil Hawes is a real talent, a real athlete. Like I said, I like everything about him except his chin. If he just, oh my God, if this dude had a chin, like, I think he'd fight for a title one day. Unfortunately, he doesn't, but I still see him getting past Roman Dolidze, you know, contingent on him not getting knocked out.
I'm in the same boat as you here, Dan, and it's maybe the first time in my life I will have put money on Phil Hawes as opposed to going against him, which maybe, you know, big red flag for everybody else out there right now. I think as long as he plays this smart, which we've seen him do previously now, if he plays it smart, I think he wins this fight. And frankly, I think his wrestling and his control on top of a guy like Dolidze might benefit him here in this spot, because if he's not looking out for that head kick, he should be the one moving forward. He should be the one winning the minutes on the feet. And then when they get into the grappling situations, he's likely to be on top of Dolidze with the wrestling. If Dolidze is willing to fall to his back and look for heel hooks and things of that nature, I think we can trust the sub D of Phil Hawes to survive that and ride those positions out. So I'm with you here. A rare favorite or pass situation here for me. And I'm going to go one step crazier, Dan, and say, I don't think Phil Hawes is going to finish Roman Dolidze. I think Dolidze is tough enough to hang in the fight. I'm looking more at an over than an under. I see some people in the chat talking violence. I get it with the durability questions of Phil Hawes, and I get it. Phil Hawes' output, we've seen him put people away before. But Dolidze is made out of steel, man. I think it would be a tall order to put that man away. Do you have an opinion on we don't have a total, but if you're thinking over or under, do you have an opinion on that?
I mean, what are the odds on both?
That's the thing. I don't have one yet. Let me look and see if I can find something overseas, if they've put a number out there just yet for this one.
Hey, someone commented, Daniel Levy, Atlanta bias. I hope that you keep that same energy when we come to the Tresean Gore pick. Just kind of foreshadow a little bit. Let's see what you're commenting then.
Over 2.5 is -135, and it looks like under 2.5 is +105 at the offshore opener.
Sorry, one more time.
Over 2.5 -135, under 2.5 +105. So if you're looking for violence, you will get plus money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any interest in either of those, to be frank.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, man. We're on the same side. Agreements here. I like that. And I just got to give, an early shout out to my guy, Mushroom, for already probably with the comment of the show today. Coach, you want me to steal his wife? Yeah, got me. Got me good with that one, Mushroom. He always gets me almost every episode. Already with the lead here for comment of the day. All right, everybody. Moving the show along here, we have got Joseph, the ugly man Holmes, taking on Jun Yong Park, the Iron Turtle himself. I like this fight, Dan. This is a good measuring stick, in my opinion, for both guys. Joseph Holmes, I've got such questions about this guy. I know everyone's so quick to jump at the fact that he's awful, he's terrible, he didn't look good in his UFC debut, and honestly, losing to a guy like Jamie Pickett, who the UFC is trying to make a name off of for Bo Nickel, like that's not a good look. And then he comes out and just smokes Alan Amedovski in the next fight. Now, granted, Alan Amedovski has nothing to write home about, big time
Oh,
chin
he's
issues, big
not?
concerns.
You mean he doesn't have a title run coming up?
Yeah, I don't think we should expect to see Alan Amedovski shooting for gold in the next year or two. So, not a great win, but he did what you're supposed to do with that kind of a fight, right? Like he smoked the guy. It wasn't even close. And he's got this body type. He reminds me of guys like Big Mouth and Jalen Turner. Like that frame of his, if he can harness it, is a cheat code. It's so tough for people to deal with when you're built like that, when you've got a 7-inch reach advantage, which he does here in this spot. And he's training over with Krause at Glory MMA. I'm not sure what to feel about that these days, Dan. Glory MMA, James Krause, big respect. I've talked him up a lot. And I used to love everybody coming out of that camp with all the stuff, the gambling stuff, the UFC imposing the strict restrictions on what these camps and fighters are allowed to do as far as sports betting goes these days. Some of the corner work that James Krause has been, I don't want to say exposed, but some of the stuff that came out where it seemed almost like he was pushing his action more than he was pushing his fighter. Like, I don't want to start any beef. I don't want to throw any shade, but I need to see this camp do some serious work in the near future before I'm willing to continue signing on the dotted line that I'm like, rah, Glory MMA. There's still some bodies there, some people that I'm still a huge, huge fan of, like my guy El Jefe Molina going places. But I want to see.
I just don't think you can look at it like that. You got to take it fighter by fighter. Because I mean,
exactly.
Cyril Gane and Alan Badeau are training partners. I mean,
that's a perfect example.
Just take it fighter by fighter. I mean, credit to James Krause, pupil Mana Martinez cashed a bet for me like a week or two ago. So I mean, you got to take it fighter by fighter.
I hear you. And that's where, honestly, like a lot of people, I think, are just piling in to fade Joseph Holmes because of what we've seen so far. They don't believe in him yet. His ground game is not something I hate. Decent jiu-jitsu, big step in knees, that good long stiff jab. I wonder about his power. I wonder about his cardio. The cardio was a big question against Jamie Pickett, but obviously that was a short notice fight against the guy that came out desperate to get the win, punched him in the mouth, had him in trouble in that fight. We didn't get any questions answered because he won his next fight in a minute. I think Joseph Holmes actually has better cardio and on a full camp would have a better showing. I don't know. So I'm kind of using this fight as a measuring stick, Dan. I want to take some notes. I want to see where this goes because Jun Yong Park, I mean, he's proven to be as tough and as durable as they come. Decent boxing, likes to mix in his takedowns. His wrestling has made some serious improvements in his last couple of fights. He almost had RoboCop out on his feet, and then he got knocked out, getting a little over zealous there in that spot. But he likes his foot sweep takedowns, strong underhooks, good knees to the body. The win over Eric Anders, able to hold his own physically against a monster like that. You got to respect it. Always got a good pace, a good solid gas tank. I think if he goes to the wrestling, he probably wins this fight here relatively handily. However, he does have 2 sub-losses on his record. Those are to Fluffy and Shavkat Rakhmonov, obviously different levels of prospect than what we're dealing with. I just have questions. I'm not ready to lay this kind of a number on the Iron Turtle in this position. I want to see what Ugly Man has to offer, and I'm not scared to go against him, Dan, but I think he's got more gas in the tank than people are giving him credit for. Jun Park minus 230 favorite right now. Joseph Holmes plus 190, plus 195. How do you see this fight playing out, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, like Joseph Holmes has only had 10 pro fights. He was born in 1995. He's just a kid. You're going to have to let this guy develop, let him get some seasoning, let him get some fights under his belt, and hopefully we can see improvements every single fight. It's just here he's dealing with a guy that's much more experienced than him. That doesn't mean that Joseph Holmes can't come out here and rise to the occasion. I mean, he's got a 7-inch reach advantage. He's got a 6-inch height advantage. Now, does he know how to use that reach and height advantage? That remains to be seen. But we've seen little glimpses here, with those physical traits, those attributes. He's able to get away with a lot of things. But I think that, the Iron Turtle is probably going to have some vet tactics for this guy. I mean, we're talking about a guy in Yong Park, like you said, already been in there with Gregory Rodriguez, even went in there with fucking Shavkat on his in his regional scene. You know what I mean? And he's just a lot more experienced. But that doesn't mean that he's impervious to getting clipped, getting rocked. And with a guy of this size who's going to be making improvements, yeah. I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is I don't really see too much value at minus 230 something. I think it's probably accurate. So it's a pass for me, but a pure pick would be, just the experience of the Iron Turtle. But nothing would surprise me, of course. A level up is not going to surprise me. I do think Holmes is talented. I just think that he just has to kind of get his feet wet. He needs to start feeling comfortable in there. Needs some more rounds in there. So it was good they got him in there with Amedovski, get his confidence up a little bit, It's just like when we talk about the Tresean Gore fight, like it sucks that there's no like Mike Jacksons in the middleweight division. Like the Mike Jacksons in the middleweight division are like Jamie Pickett and Alan Amedovski. He already fought Amedovski and Pickett beat him, right? So it's one of those things where you just got to let the kid get a little bit more seasoning. But Yong Park, as long as he's not, badly compromised, he most likely has those vet tactics for the young kid. And I expect the young kid will be back for sure.
Yep. You and I are once again in lockstep here. I'm going to pick Park for the win. However, I am not laying that price tag. I want to see when the prop numbers come out. Obviously, Holmes by submission will have my attention, but definitely a fight that I'm just going to mainly watch for entertainment and to take some notes. All right, everybody, we got 84 people here in the chat. Make sure you hit up my guy Dan over at Half the Battle and give him a follow, support him, subscribe. Let me go ahead and turn on the names here so you can see his gorgeous name right there. Forgot that little button. Hit the like button for us. That's the best thing you can do for us here on the show, and we appreciate y'all for being here. Next fight up, we're going to talk about my guy Chase Hooper taking on Steve Garcia. And damn it, Dan, I missed an opportunity. Why am I not rocking the Chase Hooper merch? I bought the shirt after that round 3 TKO the last time out, my 40-1, and I try to remember to wear it every single time Chase Hooper steps there in that cage. But tonight, it's getting, you know what? Temperature's finally dipping a little bit, cooling off. I can break out the NHL jerseys. And got my Islanders rocking right now here for tonight. Neither my Islanders or my Coyotes are playing this evening, so don't get too mad at me, everybody. But I'm ready for this fight here, Dan. I've been waiting and watching for Hooper's next opponent because this kid is really the definition of growing up right in front of us. He came from being this string beanie little thing off the Contender Series to now he's out there finishing people with nasty elbows. He's working with Wonderboy Thompson at Upstate Karate, getting that striking rounded out. His BJJ is something like I've never seen before, dude. He's like Gumby out there. He is not made of the same stuff that I am. The way he can bend and twist and the reversals he pulls on people, because you can literally fold him in half and it's just not an issue for him. I love everything I'm seeing from Chase Hooper, really coming of age in my opinion. But I'm still a little scared to lay chalk on him. I'll be quite honest with you. I'm not entirely comfortable with the concept of laying this kind of a number on Chase Hooper at this stage of my life. I do think that he should probably win this fight. Steve Garcia, 12-5. He won on the Dana White Contender Series back in 2019. He's 2-2 in his UFC run so far. And he's coming off a bad knockout loss, man. Mahashate just absolutely destroyed this poor kid. He always brings the pressure, though. Steps right in front of you, winging wild hooks. He's got a tendency to like get dropped and leave his chin hanging out there, but he always recovers. Whenever he wins, he just fights his way back into it. It's that relentlessness that ends up getting him the win. you watch his fight back with Luis Pena, and Pena was able to just kind of ground him, body triangle him, get his back, and just kind of ride him out for a full 15 minutes. Garcia's submission defense seemed to hold up pretty well in that kind of a position. And Pena's still got more wrestling chops than Hooper does. So it's one of those situations where you got to think Hooper, maybe does he get his first ever karate standing knockout in this spot because his opponent is just so damn chinny? Or does he go the route of trying to tie up his opponent, get him on the ground, pin him around, take that back, grind those minutes off the clock, maybe elbow him in the mouth a little bit here and there? This is a great fight, man. I can't wait to see which one of these guys, one bounce back, one maybe continuing on their winning ways. But I'm picking Chase Hooper again. I just don't want to trust him at this number. Right now, they've got Hooper minus 240. Steve Garcia is plus 200. And I would not be shocked if Steve Garcia can survive the ground onslaught and hang around in this fight. I also, and not saying he'd win, saying he'd survive, but I also wouldn't be shocked at all if this is a lamb to slaughter situation, getting Chase Hooper another nice little highlight reel TKO victory in this spot. Dan, what do you think about this fight?
Yeah, I mean, look, Chase Hooper's in a spot where he's still ironing things out. I mean, the kid was born in 1999. Like, Clint and I would not know what it means to be born in 1999, let alone the 90s, right? I mean, he's just a kid, but he does some impressive stuff. I mean, I maybe would pump the brakes on, when you were talking about you've never seen scrambles like that. Like, dude, we just saw that Gamrot Dariush fight and the Gamrot Sarukian fight. Like, that's high level scrambling. But yeah, you got to give it credit to this guy. Hooper, the way he's able to use those long limbs and create these funky, unorthodox scrambles and some of his sweeps. Actually, if you go back and you watch one of his regional fights against Luis Gomez, very, very impressive stuff. The way he's able to use the dexterity of his legs and just get to fight where he wants it. And he's definitely had to pay his dues inside the octagon, fighting super experienced guys like Caceres, like Steven Peterson. Took his licks. Like, one thing about him, like, look, it might not look the prettiest, but the kid's a fighter. The kid's got heart, man. I mean, the kid's not gonna quit. He'll take his ass whooping like a man. And I guess that last fight, even though there were some sketchy moments, it was a big step in the right direction. And the thing with Steve Garcia, I think he's better than what he's shown. I just kind of question certain things about, look, I don't know the guy personally and I don't know his situation, but based on what I've seen, this guy's actually a former bantamweight, but he used to miss weight at bantamweight all the time, has issues making weight, kind of looks a little soft around the midsection. About him being rocked in a few fights, I will give him a pass because the shots that he got rocked with, I mean, like, even against that one guy, Ontiveros, who, it was a can, but like,
that was a damn axe kick.
But that was a fucking axe kick to the chin, man. Like, I don't expect someone to just eat that and then smile and wave at the camera. It's like, that's gonna rock anybody. And then the next one, the Maheshate, like, dude, I mean, he cleaned his clock.
Shot is a beast.
The kid can crack. So I thought he got cracked with some honest shots. I just think that the UFC know exactly what they're doing. Like, this is a good way to build up this young prospect. Let him get his feet wet. Let him feast on some bottom of the barrel guys on the roster. I got to tell you what, though, back in the day, Garcia beat Ronnie Lawrence on the regional scene. Now, granted, that was a weight class below, and granted, Steve Garcia missed weight for that fight. So the guy's got to get his weight stuff in order, man. I'd love to see him get with the PI, get some good nutrition. Look, he's a tough kid, but the fight I always circle back to when handicapping this one is the Luis Pena fight. Like, Pena was able to backpack him for like 13 of 15 minutes. And I know that that's one thing that Chase Hooper is going to see on the tape, look to capitalize on. So, yeah, I see Chase Hooper pulling this one out, but no, I'm not interested in laying 2-something on Chase Hooper.
Yep, right there with you, man. And I'm thinking Chase Hooper by decision again. Like, I know, again, it screams violence in this kind of a spot, but I think Garcia is tough enough to hang in there. His sub defense checked out. I think he'll be able to defend the crazy scrambles, and Chase Hooper probably wins a 30-27 via back control is what I'm looking at here in this spot. But no bet at this point here for me. Real quick, got to chat. My guy Robert Jones in the chat. Robert, buddy, you got to time out because there's only 2 rules in my chat. 2 rules. No hate speech, racism, sexism, blah, whatever. We don't tolerate that kind of bullshit. And then no spam, bro. Like, you can say whatever the hell you want about me. You can mock how I look. You can laugh at how much money I've lost over the course of the year. Whatever you want. Just no spam, Brody. So don't keep doing it. You'll get a full-on block. If you come back after the 5 minutes, just hang out, chill, have a good time with us. Let's talk some fights, man.
But at the end of the day, even though he was being mean, he's still here watching your show. He's still a fan is the funny part about it, right? Like, they want to talk all the shit behind a profile pic that isn't them, but they're still here supporting your show, which is the interesting thing.
And that's, I'm giving him the warning. I'm not blocking him. Hang around. Be a dick if you want, but still hang out.
The funny thing about it is, if this dude met you in person, he'd probably shake your hand and ask you for a picture and tell you how much he respects you. So, you know, I don't know the psychology behind how like these shit talkers work, but I just know like there was one dude that was always talking shit about me, and I happened to meet him at a UFC event, and he was the nicest guy, wanted to shake my hand, tell me how much he respects me. So it's kind of funny how it is behind a computer screen when you don't know what the guy looks like versus when they approach you in person. So I have my theory is he's a big fan of yours.
Hey, people on the internet are always trolls, man. I used to take part when I was younger. I'm not gonna lie, it happens to the best of us. You know, real quick.
I think he low-key has a poster of Clint on his wall.
Hey, I put out some pretty good images there, man. They could make a pretty good poster. I could do a swimsuit calendar for everybody. Headlocks and company in the chat saying, I'm not trying to spam. Could you answer whether or not you get paid to put out losing picks? Headlocks. I think that's a new name. I don't recall seeing that one here for you. Anybody that knows me or has watched the show, frankly, knows that's a silly question. That's a gigantic, resounding no. This is gambling. This is sports betting. I'm having a bad year, folks. That is straight up all this comes down to. I'm having the worst year gambling of my life. My normal reads, my normal processes, they don't work. I've posted out a couple times. The last 3 years since I started the podcast, I have been net profitable until 2022. You know, examples like with the TJ situation this weekend, I could have gone from having a losing night to having a winning night, but Brody comes in with a completely destroyed shoulder. And I don't know why I keep saying Brody this podcast episode. I will quit and I apologize. But that's the kind of thing that you can't plan for. Could have completely turned my night around. Had no idea. Wouldn't have been involved in that pick if I had known anything about his shoulder. There's some bad luck involved in that. There's also some very bad picks involved in that, like my pick on Alexander Gustafsson a couple weeks ago. So things are just shifting. I definitely am not paid to give misinformation. I've always come on this show, and I know the show's gotten big over the last year or two, guys. Most of y'all in the chat know this and recognize this, but anybody who's been with me longer than like the last 6 months or so knows that I have a process, and I've been doing this for 3 years, and nothing has changed. Getting a sponsor, having people supporting me hasn't changed a single damn thing that I have done on this show as far as the way I present the information to you guys. The goal of the show, hang out, talk MMA, best sport in the world, degen out, gamble a little bit, give you guys information, and then you go be big boys and girls, strap up your bootlaces, and make your own damn picks. If you're straight up tailing me, that's why I tell you guys, we're swinging from the rafters over here. I'm a degen. I have fun gambling, and I'm not doing it as a side source of income. There are better sports bettors out there than me. There are people you can go to, like my guy Dan, like Lucrative MMA, guys who will give you proven long-term track records. I'm not there yet. I'm still working on it.
Can I answer some things here? Firstly,
yeah, jump in, man.
Is Clint a tout? No, he is not.
No.
Does Clint give out his bets for free, not only on the show and online? Yes, he does. Thirdly, to keep the lights on the show, you need a sponsor. Like, y'all aren't paying him to keep the lights on. His sponsors are. So I don't see what the issue is. And lastly, if his picks are so bad, then why don't you just go bet the opposite side? I mean, it's not like Clint's out here putting a gun to your head, you know, making you bet things with your own money. He's just telling you what he bets with his money. So
exactly,
I don't understand how anyone could. I think it's categorically false to say what that guy said. So yeah, I think he's just trying to be a dick, man, and I think we can move on.
Regardless, it's all good, man. He's just saying, I'm just asking. It's a valid question, but here's the thing, man. Every single one of these shows has a sportsbook sponsor. All of them. Every single one of them. It's not something unique to me. So if that's a standard that you go by, you wouldn't listen to any of the shows where betting content is put out there, because all of us have sportsbook sponsors.
But how are you supposed to make money podcasting? Like, we put a lot of time into this. Like, the way to make money podcasting is through sponsors, period. So it's not like you're out here, putting your picks behind a paywall and charging them for losing picks. Like, you tell them what you're on, and it's their choice that they want to follow or fade it.
That's what's up. It's a
Not
free
to
show,
mention,
baby.
Not to mention, I think you give out entertaining content. So that's
I'm
just
an
my take
entertainer,
on it.
man. That's the point, man. I'm here to be entertaining. Speaking of which, though, let's get back to the damn fights. Next fight up, Andrei Arlovski is coming back, taking on Marcos Rogério de Lima. And we have not seen Marcos de Lima since he put my poor dad in the ground. He's been looking. Actually, that's a lie. He had a little controversial decision win his last time out. Marcos Rogério de Lima, right here, actually, in good old Phoenix, Blagoy Ivanov lost a decision, which myself and many other people actually think he probably should have gotten the nod for. At any rate, he is 2-2 in his last 4, but he's taken on Andrei Arlovski, the king of split decisions himself. Andrei Arlovski is 43 years old, Dan. 43 years old, and he's still doing the damn thing. Like, holy shit. How is he still out here fighting people? What I don't understand is these judges, man, they've got to be fans or something, because he does not lose split decisions. If it goes to the judges' scorecards, you're damn skippy that this man is getting his hand raised. It's just a fact at this point. Coming off a 4-fight win streak over Collier, who I thought he lost to, Vanderaa, who I thought he lost to, Carlos Felipe, which I think he won that one, and then Chase Sherman, which actually I think he won that one too. But the 2 split decisions, I actually felt like the wrong guy got his hand raised. You just know what you're going to get from Andrei Arlovski, man. That relentless, constant pace and pressure, risk-adverse striking style, very defensively sound. Marcos de Lima, he's more of a big power striker, old school Muay Thai, likes the leg kick, come in, tries to take your head off. I don't know if that's going to work on Andrei Arlovski, Dan. This is one of those situations where I do not want to put money on a 43-year-old in a cage fight, especially when the other guy's bringing heat. But Marcos Rogério, on his best day, never reached the heights of Andrei Arlovski's career. This is a big difference in prospect, I guess you'd say. And Marcos is not a young man himself. He's 37 years old. So you got to wonder, if he doesn't get Andrei Arlovski out of there, especially early, is he just going to get chipped away at for another 15 minutes like a lot of these boys do? Plus 185 on Andrei Arlovski, minus 210 Marcos Rogério de Lima. How do you feel about this fight, man?
I mean, I agree with the Collier fight maybe being a bit suspect, but I don't agree about the Jared Vanderaa one. I definitely had that for Arlovski. But I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, if you're a bit on the slower side, that's where Arlovski can get off on his newly found point fighting style that he's been doing these past few fights. And it's pretty amazing how many resurgences has this guy had, because there was a point where he was getting knocked out like every single fight, and now he's won 4 fights in a row. And prior to the Aspinall fight, he was on a win streak too. So it's pretty cool to see what this guy's been doing. I've always kind of had an issue with Marcos Rogério de Lima Pesao. I never quite thought that he was the toughest per se, because back in his 205 days, he'd be tapping out the chokes that weren't even locked in against Nikita Krylov, against what's the name of that other Russian? What's the name of the Russian that Kutalaba knocked out and Paul Craig submitted? And God, what's his fucking name, dude?
Magomed?
Magomed who?
Ankalaev?
All their names are Magomed. No, this
That's
dude,
fair. All their names are Magomed.
it was Gadzi Himarad Antigulov. That's what I'm talking
Antigulov,
about.
okay.
Yeah. Like, that shit wasn't locked in. And so there was questions about the heart, even like the Stefan Struve fight. You 10-8 him the first round, then kind of give up in the second round. But the submission threat's not really there for Arlovski. So firstly, I'm not laying no minus 2-0 on a guy I can't trust.
No.
I'll tell you that right now. But like, also, I got to say to the fans, don't listen to a word I say about this fight, because besides like the Aspinall fight, I'm terrible at picking Arlovski fights, So let's just get that out there as well. But the thing that I've noticed is that the guys that do well against Arlovski, they can usually match the speed. And with Marcos Rogério de Lima Pesao being a former 205er, I think he might be able to match the speed. And I think he's got a little bit more power, a little bit more youth, despite him being 37. But the thing you got to understand is, we're not talking about bantamweight. We're talking about heavyweight, where as you get older, these guys age like fine wines. I'm going to lean towards Pesao to kind of land the harder shots here, but an Arlovski Weasel split decision is not going to surprise me. How many times have we seen it, right? So the pick is Pesao, but, I ain't laying no -2 something on him.
Man, it didn't come through last week, but Chukagian by split decision at 10-1. That's an auto bet, man. Like if it's going to be a close, tight fight, kind of how I feel right now with Andrei Arlovski, the way his fights have gone. Andrei Arlovski by decision or Andrei Arlovski by split, like those are just damn near auto bets at this point until he does something differently. If he decided to go to the grappling, Dan, I mean, like you mentioned, Marcos de Lima he gives one good umph. He tries to get up one time, and if he doesn't get you off him, he'll just, settle, take the rest of the round off, lay on his back for 15 minutes. If Andrei Arlovski decides to grapple, he probably just mauls him here in this spot, but we know he's never going to do that. So this is going to be a pitter-pattery, point-striking type of fight, and he's going to have to dodge those bombs, which makes it sketchy as hell at 43 years old. I'm going to lean, betting-wise, I think it's dog or pass.
Let me say this.
I'll say Andrei
grappling. Speaking of grappling, actually, don't be surprised if De Lima goes for some takedowns of his own. Despite the submission defense not being the best, he's actually got some underrated top control. His top control is very heavy. He's been able to take a lot of guys down. So maybe he wants to go to that. Who knows? But yeah, I suck at picking Arlovski fights, but I'll pick Pesao.
Yeah, I'm on the other side. I'll pick Arlovski. This is a sketchy as shit fight, though. God bless any one of you that puts money on this one. That might be me by the end of the week. It's only Arlovski, though, if it's coming down the pipe here for me. Shout out. We've got live from H-Town new members subscribing here. Thank you very much for jumping in, as well as Fanatical Jim. Thank you guys very much for supporting Pub Sports Radio here. You guys mean the world to us, and we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you guys constantly supporting us. All right, everybody, next fight up. Dan, I don't want to talk about it. I just don't. I don't want to even do it.
Let me do
Tresean Gore taking on Josh Fremd. And gosh, dang, I've talked about how I'm having a rough year. One of my worst reads that I just went heavy on, man. Bold claim made, money put on the line. I thought Tresean Gore was going to just roll through Cody Brundage, man. I'll be honest. I really did. And if you watch that fight back, he looks like he's winning damn near every second of it up until the point that he gets starched. He's just not ready, man. He's 3-2 as a pro, and he's coming in here fighting these guys with a whole hell of a lot more experience. He's so raw. He's got a lot of physical gifts. He's strong. He's explosive. He's got power in his hands. Apparently, he moved over to Fortis MMA, which at this point, I think, a gym change is probably maybe something just trying to shake it up a little bit, give him a little extra edge. I don't know if that's something you'd really like out of him if he had won his last fight. Maybe the gym change isn't necessary. It's just I don't want to say a scare tactic, but you know what I mean? Something for him to try to feel refreshed, invigorated, that kind of a thing. Don't necessarily know that it's a positive, when normally I would think moving to Fortis I have questions about it, given Gore's circumstances. Josh Fremd, 9-3, Factory X Muay Thai. He was actually the opponent that Gore was supposed to be fighting before Cody Brundage filled in. So they've set this one back up. They've put these guys back together. And after everything, now we've got a decent, solid favorite line here on Joshua Fremd. He's a -175 favorite, +155. The underdog, Tresean Gore. And I think you might have a little more to say about this fight than I do. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it on over to you.
Yeah, where's the guy that was saying I was biased towards Atlanta fighters? That's kind of funny because my first bet of the night is Josh Fremd. I bet on Josh Fremd at -170. Look, here's what I got to say. I had the honor and the privilege of actually calling Tresean Gore's first 2 professional MMA fights in the NFC. It was an honor to call them. I think the kid's a good talent. I think he's a great athlete. He's got power. He can wrestle. I think he can do it all. The thing he's lacking is experience, man. You don't just get to the UFC at 3-0. And if we're talking, let's give this guy some entry-level fights in the middleweight division. I mean, unless they're going to give you like a Jamie Pickett or an Alan Abadovsky, an entry-level fight is Josh Fremd. And Josh Fremd is no, easy fight. This guy is no pushover. I mean, you go back to this guy's regional scene. If you want to see some devastating, brutal, vicious knockouts, You check out Josh Fremd's regional scene, and like even the guys he lost to on the regional scene are guys like RoboCop who are, about to enter the top 15 in the UFC. So I just think the experience difference is massive here.
Tragic.
And I like the well-rounded attack of Josh Fremd. He's massive for the weight class. He's 6'4", knows how to use his reach, knows how to use that length, the kicks, the punches, the knees, the elbows on the mat. Don't sleep on his ground game either. He was able to reverse Anthony Fluffy Hernandez on short notice, even land a takedown of his own. But against lesser competition, you'll see his Darce's Anaconda series is really on point. And I think he's just paid his dues. He's paid his dues and is ready to be in the UFC. My only concern with Josh Fremd is with him being 6'4", he's got a bit of that tall man defense. He kind of fights with his chin in the air. Tresean Gore is a guy that can crack. It's just my issue with Gore is that, like, damn, like, can't we just get like 5 fights outside the UFC first, get our feet wet, get some seasoning, get some experience, and then come to the UFC and make your run? Because I think the guy has got the athletic capabilities. I think he hits hard. I think he can wrestle. I think he can do it all, and for this camp, he actually left Atlanta. He went to Fortis MMA. So he's got some good looks for some tall training partners. I mean, training with Ryan Spann, who's 6'4", training with Kennedy and Zetruku, who's 6'5", training with Jeff Neal, who's one of the fastest guys in the UFC. So he's got some good looks at Fortis MMA, no doubt about it, to get him ready. It's just that in the gym and in the fight are two different things. And I think that the way he performed on The Ultimate Fighter was a blessing and a curse, almost like Alex Hernandez having that fluke knockout over Beneil was a blessing and a curse. It was a blessing because, wow, you knocked out Beneil Dariush, but it's a curse because now you're going to be in all these high-profile fights that you're not ready for. And I think similar things are happening here. Not that Josh Fremd is a high-profile fight. What I'm trying to say is that this is what like an entry-level fight in the middleweight division looks like. A Cody Brundage, a Josh Fremd. And I think it's something that Tresean Gore is simply not ready for right now. I think down the line he will be. I think we take this L, we go back to LFA, we go back to the NFC, we put a win streak together, let this guy get 10 fights under his belt, then give him a call to the UFC, and then I think he can shine because he's a very, very talented guy. It's just lacking in the experience department. So for that reason, I bet on Josh Fremd at -170.
I like it. I like it, man. Yeah, this is a spot that I think I'm going to look violence. I think I'm going to look for an opportunity for this thing to go under. I know Factory X Muay Thai has had my number recently, so I should just kind of side on betting on betting against Tresean Gore at this point. I agree with the seasoning. You just always worry about that nuke that he can pull out at any point in time, and I'm agreeing with you on Josh Fremd's ground game. Honestly, this fight is probably just a complete pass for me, Dan. I have been so bullish on the Tresean Gore side of things leading into this. It's been such a big item for me that I need to not lose any more money on this kid, because if I you know what? I talked about this last week, Dan. I was rooting for Charles Oliveira. I've been betting against Charles Oliveira at my own detriment for way too long. And I said, as soon as I flip sides, if I decide to bet on Charles Oliveira, it's a lock that he is losing this weekend. And sure enough, I stayed off it. I didn't bet it, but I said I wanted to. And he did, in fact, lose because I flipped sides on it like that. That's going to be the same thing here with freaking Tresean Gore. So I'm saving all of you by not betting this fight, because if I bet on Josh Fremd, Tresean Gore is going to knock his ass out in the first round. So I'm not betting either side. I'm not mushing anybody's bets is what's going to happen on this one. But I think violence or pass. Ultimate pick. Couldn't have said it better. Violence or pass for me here on this one, Dan. But I'll wish you the best.
And listen, man, I mean, when Tresean goes back to LFA, bet him there. Once he gets a little seasoning under his belt, once he gets his confidence back and he feels like he truly belongs, because right now he's just learning on the job. He's had fucking 5 pro fights, man. He's just not ready. But once he is ready, then the Tresean Gore that we've expected this whole time, that's when you're going to be able to capitalize, because people are going to have this, perspective of him, of how he is now before he was ready. But once he's ready, that's when you need to look out. I just simply don't think now's the time. But don't write him off, in 2 or 3 years from now.
Oh, no, I'm not writing him off at all. I'm just not losing any money on him on Saturday.
Good.
Here you go, everybody. Next up, Dustin Jacoby taking on Khalil Roundtree. Khalil Roundtree. Man, what a fight. I talked about Factory X Muay Thai. Dustin Jacoby's had my number, man. Absolutely had my number. I bet against him in his last couple of fights, and he has looked better than ever. That last fight that he won, that's going to sting for a long, long time, man. I flipped. I completely flipped. I was on Dustin Jacoby. I was solid and confident, and then took a little too long, went back on the tape study, listened to somebody else's show, and the doubt started creeping in. I flipped over and I bet Da Un Jung, and freaking Jacoby comes out and murders him in the first round. Quite frankly, Jacoby's looking better and better, man. He's making adjustments. He's hurting people on the feet. The Muay Thai is slick. The grappling's getting better. The gas tank is good. His toughness, his durability, man, that's he's putting it all together at this stage of his career. At 34 years old, it's impressive, and I like everything I see about him. So definitely not going to be betting against him here in this fight against Khalil Roundtree. My thing with Khalil is he's such a head case, man. Khalil is the kind of guy who, if he's winning, he's an amazing hammer. Absolutely will destroy people if he's in the driver's seat. As soon as you flip the tables on him, I feel like he's breakable. We've seen him shell up. We've seen him go down to pressure. You know, the Ion Kutalaba fight always comes to mind. I know Ion's a complete wild man and a monster in there, especially early, but the intimidation factor, getting under his skin, getting in his head, those are things I've got questions about. You know, taking an L to Marcin Prachnio, you can't get that back from me, man. That's like bottom of the barrel, in my opinion. So coming off his last two wins over Modestas Bukauskas, who I think the UFC dropped, either that or he's just taking a real long time to come back from that knee. And then Carl Roberson, who, again, I'm pretty sure the UFC has dropped or is going to drop. And not a great couple wins. You got to do what you got to do to get back on track, but I'm not ready to write home about Khalil Roundtree yet at this point in time. So it's Dustin Jacoby or pass for me, Dan. Right now, Jacoby's a minus 160 favorite. Khalil is a plus 140. And I think it's another potential violence spot. You know, if you get Dustin Jacoby on point, he can chip away at and break Khalil Roundtree. And if Khalil comes in angry, focused, Khalil Roundtree, we've seen what he does to people early. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he puts someone like Dustin Jacoby down early in that fight. We've seen Dustin hurt. We've seen him wobbled. We've seen him rocked. Someone who hits a little bit harder might be able to stay focused and put him away in a fight like this. So, like I said, not picking a side, I'll say Jacoby. I'm thinking maybe violence. How about you, Dan?
Listen, Khalil Roundtree is the definition of a hot and cold fighter. Sometimes he'll look like an absolute murderer, like he did against Eric Anders, like he did against Carl Roberson, like he did against Bukauskas. And then other times he'll lose to Marcin Prachnio. So it's like one of those things where I hate saying shit like which version of Khalil is going to show up, because I truly think that discredits the opponent. But I think it kind of goes back to the Floyd Mayweather quote, you know, I know this guy can give it, but can he take it too? And I know for a fact that Dustin Jacoby can give it and take it. I mean, this guy's kickboxing background, I mean, he was in there with the Alex Pereiras. Now, granted, he got knocked out brutally, but still, he was in there with the Simon Marcus's, beat my Muay Thai coach, Wayne Barrett, twice. I mean, like, so he's very experienced. And in the UFC, you see what he's been doing. Like, even in the fights that have been kind of close, like, you see that this guy can dig deep like he did against Maxim Grishin. Knocked out an undefeated prospect, undefeated in the UFC, in Da Un Jung. Had a tooth and nail war with Michal Oleksiejczuk, who's a true warrior, a guy who also broke Khalil as well. So, you know, it's one of those things where I do lean Dustin Jacoby. I think that he's got the technical acumen from his kickboxing background to capitalize against a guy like Khalil. It's just that sometimes, I don't know what it is, Khalil will tap into that Super Saiyan, and you see, like, it's like that example we talk about. If you gave me the video game controller with Khalil, I mean, we're fucking knocking out he's a 205, right? I was gonna say we're knocking out Adesanya, but at 205, we're knocking out Yuri if you give me the video game controller with Khalil Roundtree. But
yep,
unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. So I got to go with Dustin Jacoby. But I mean, am I gonna sit here and act surprised if Khalil Roundtree knocks anybody out in the UFC? No, I'm not at all. But I think that Dustin Jacoby's got the better process here. I don't want to disrespect Khalil and say that Dustin's got the better technique, but I just think it's more refined technique. And as long as he's not badly compromised, I think that he's got the tactics to come out here and find a way to win. So I'm gonna go Dustin Jacoby.
I'm right there with you, man. We're both on the Dustin Jacoby train here in this spot. I like it. And I'm taking a look here at my topology lineup here. And for some reason, we accidentally skipped the fight. So we're going to have to backpedal ever so slightly for this next one, everybody. Apologize for the fight being out of order here, but we got to talk about Waldo-Cortes Acosta taking on Jared Vanderaa. And I can hear the groans. I can hear already, Dan. Guys, I've made a bet on this fight, and it is due process. The Dana White Contender Series fade angle that I have come up with here, it is it's profitable long term when you bet it blindly, Dan. That's what I've discovered when I hunt and peck, when I pick and choose. It is something that doesn't work out well because you miss the opportunities on the spots that come through, and then maybe you'll jump on one that fails. Doesn't work that way. You got to just play the angle blind. And that's what I'm doing here, Dan. That's what I'm doing here. I have got a 2-unit bet at plus 175 on Jared Vanderaa. I am notoriously bad at reading market movement, so I guess I should have just sat a little bit tight and let people pile in and get a better number because that number has moved the other way. You can get plus 190 right now on Jared Vanderaa, but frankly, the way the Dana White Contender Series fade works, folks, is when a fighter coming off of Dana White's Contender Series is favored over a UFC caliber fighter, someone who has UFC level experience, and the UFC caliber fighter is the underdog, you blindly bet against them. That's it. That's it. Basically, they're coming off the Contender Series. They shouldn't be favored. And in fact, it is more profitable on these bigger numbers than it is on the smaller pick'em, near pick'em price tag type of numbers, Dan. So I've got to roll with it. I'm on Jared Vanderaa. Thankfully, I can see the opportunity in this one. There have been a couple that I'm blatantly just like, no, hell no. By the way, the Contender Series fade will not apply to Bo Nickel. Like, there's certain exceptions to the rule. But this is a spot where Waldo-Cortes Acosta has a boxing background. You know, his 3 losses, 2 of those are by knockout. Jared Vanderaa, we've seen what he does in the UFC. Decent volume striking. Like I said, I thought he beat Andrei Arlovski. His BJJ black belt is not particularly bad, but it's not fantastic either because he doesn't normally choose to wrestle. Well, Waldo-Cortes Acosta likes to back up, actually. I apologize. He likes to back up and stick his jab out at people. He's got heavy hands, big knockout power, but quite frankly, he's a minute loser, Dan. He's one of these guys who doesn't really have a sense of urgency. He does carry his power late, which is a bit concerning here in this fight when his opponents start to tire out, slow down. He does step on the gas pedal. He's a round 2, round 3 knockout type of guy if you want to take a look at those types of numbers. But you go back to his fights right before the Contender Series, and he gives up some of the softest takedowns I've ever seen, Dan. He does some really poor things on the mat, turns his back immediately, makes mistakes trying to get back up to his feet. Someone with the grappling pedigree of Jared Vanderaa, who should be, in theory, fighting for his job on Saturday, should be able to expose a guy like that on the mat.
What grappling pedigree is that?
Well, he's a black belt, Dan. He's a black belt.
Is that true?
That's what they say. That's what they say.
Who's they?
Yeah, exactly. But at any rate, I think this is going to be a volume versus power type of situation. Jared does put up decent volume numbers on the feet if he goes to the ground. You know, he's got, decent body lock, trip takedowns. This is the kind of guy that I think he can ground and get on top of. And like we were talking about before with Marcos Rogério de Lima, Jared Vanderaa is a big boy. When he gets on top of you, the ground and pound is good. He's heavy. He's hard to get out from under. He does have some jiu-jitsu in his back pocket. Guys, it makes me a little sick to my stomach that the first bet that I locked in coming off a losing night is Jared Vanderaa, because here we fucking go again. But like I said, it's my angle, and I'm playing the angle blindly because that's the only way it's profitable. So here we go. I'm on Jared Vanderaa. What are you doing here, Dan?
Well, I agree with you on one thing. You said we've seen what Jared Vanderaa does in the UFC. You're right. We have. He loses, so to me, it's just one of those things, friends don't let friends bet on Jared Vanderaa. And oftentimes, I got a lot of angles that I go to when I'm looking into betting fights. Obviously, the most important thing is the number. And that's probably why I'm going to pass on this fight. I didn't like the number on his opponent. But one of the things I like to look into is I look at the card and I look at who does not belong in the UFC, who is a couple fights away from retirement, who's about to get cut, and Jared Vanderaa does not belong in the UFC. So I was like, okay, so this might be one of the guys I fade. But then I pulled up the tape on his opponent, and look, he's a heavy hitter. He's got some pro boxing, background a little bit, but I wasn't impressed enough to lay 2-something on him. So I'll give you that, But I think he most likely, clips Vanderaa, gets him out of there early. But it could, if he doesn't, it could get interesting. That one fight that Vanderaa won, he had some nice volume, and maybe if he gets on top, he does weigh 265 pounds, so maybe he can make something happen here. But I'm just not going to pick Jared Vanderaa to win a UFC fight. So give me the new guy.
I hear you, and it all makes sense, Dan. I'm a glutton for punishment. Like I said, the only reason I'm making this bet is because of that angle. When you play the angle, you play it blind because heckin' doesn't do you any good. So here we go, Jared Vanderaa. Everybody pray for me. Next fight we're going to talk to you guys about. Tim Means, the Dirty Bird, makes his return, taking on Max Griffin. And Max Griffin, Dan, has not necessarily quietly looked pretty damn good in his last couple of fights. I mean, he gave my boy Neil Magny a scare in his last one. Max Griffin seems to really be putting it all together. The dude's got hands, he's got power, he's got speed, athleticism, and he lost a split decision to Neil Magny, which rates pretty damn highly in my book. I think a lot of Neil Magny. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage here in this spot. The Dirty Bird, 32, 13, and 1. One of the nastiest Muay Thai strikers we've seen in the UFC. He's been finished a decent number of times, though. 6 submission losses, 2 by knockout. Man, I can't trust Tim Means personally. I think he's taken a lot of damage. At 38 years old, I question the durability, and I know he's still a very smooth operator when it comes to the way he strikes and how he does things on the feet, but he's been in a few too many wars for me. He's taken a bit too much damage for me. I feel like this is a story of two fighters headed different directions, where Max Griffin is probably the one who is streaking right now, and Tim Means is probably the one who's getting ready to start his decline if he hasn't already. If anything, I'm going to be on Max Griffin here in this spot. Dan, how about yourself?
Yeah, as a pick, I agree, but I'm not going to bet him at a price like this. I mean, I think that Tim Means, actually, technically speaking, I think he's better. I love the hand fighting, the parrying game. He's able to mix in his elbows to his straight punches, the leg kicks, and don't sleep on his takedown ability either. I think that at this point, he's just a very seasoned vet. So I always love watching a good Dirty Bird fight. But the thing about Max Griffin, even prior to this current success that he's been having, like, for example, when I bet on Elizeu Zaleski against Max Griffin, like, Max Griffin gave me a scare. Max Griffin dropped Zaleski. So he's always had pop in his punches. Dropped Neil Magny badly in that last fight. A lot of people could argue that he won that fight against Neil Magny. I'm just kind of worried that, like, that was kind of like his Super Bowl to kind of crack into the top 10. You've been paying your dues. Now's your chance to get ranked, and it didn't go his way. Like, is he going to be a little unmotivated for this one? But if he's still looking like the guy that's on his current streak, I think that it'll be close at times, but I think that the more impactful shots will be landed by Max Griffin, to where he can kind of, get those wobbles at the end of rounds, maybe get a knockdown or two. But the exchanges are going to be really not necessarily even, but they're going to be heated. Let's just leave it at that, man. Like, dudes are going to be getting cracked in this fight. I just think that at this point, I like how, Max is wearing the shots a little better than Tim is. So I'm going to pick him for that reason, but I don't see any value at minus 190 or minus 200. So it's a pass for me, but I'll pick Griffin.
I hear you. I'm in the same spot. I picked Griffin. I'm a little closer to betting Griffin, I think, than you are. It sounds like minus 175 is a bit of a steep number on the feet, like you mentioned. We got to give Tim Means a little bit of credit. We got to give him a little bit of a break here. He is very, very slick and probably the more technical striker. So probably too wide of a number. I'm just kind of struggling here in this spot, Dan, because at this point right now is our co-main event. We had a couple fights fall off. We're waiting for a couple of fill-ins on short notice, and frankly, I don't know if I can stomach my Dana White Contender Series fate on Jared Vanderaa being my only bet on the card. So we'll see if I get to the well there with Max Griffin. I don't mind the Max Griffin KO, something along those lines. I think he's got the opportunity to finish someone like Tim Means at this point in his career, but numbers are everything. We'll see where this thing ends up going, and I'm going to be picking Max Payne Griffin here on Saturday. All right, everybody, do us a favor. Hit the like button. Help us out here. This show is almost wrapped, Dan. It's main event time already. This is a short freaking card. Calvin Kattar taking on Arnold Allen. Wow. I am so stoked for this fight right now, man. You could not put together a better matchup in this division. Two guys that are boxer heavy. Both guys like to work with their hands. You know, Arnold Allen, we saw what he can do in his last fight. Absolutely ran through Dan Hooker, put some people on notice, including myself. That was a prove it to me spot, and he freaking proved it to me. Calvin Kattar, on the other hand, the former self-proclaimed best boxer in the division, had taken, a couple steps back from that claim. He's a little got some work to do, does Calvin Kattar. He's 3-2 in his last 5, coming off of a very tough fought split decision loss over Josh Emmett. Another one where a lot of people would have thought he did enough to go ahead and get that split. So, the notable loss to Max Holloway. Dan, these are two guys that, quite frankly, I have had a bad read on since the jump. Like, I have questioned Arnold Allen for a long time, really unfoundedly. And Calvin Kattar is a guy who I did have success betting Josh Emmett against him. I did go ahead and take that stab. But again, like I said, that was very tight, very close. Barely got away with that one. But
very close, but in a very close fight, you took a plus 245 dog. That's a very sharp bet, my friend.
Thank you, sir. I will take that. Yeah, I will take that. One of my few victories here this year. But a spot where I've been wrong on him in a couple of other spots. I think I bet Jeremy Stephens against him after the Zabit fight. I think I bet Giga against him. So not a good track record for me here on Calvin Kattar. We know what this guy's going to do. Volume. He's got one of the nastiest jabs in the game. But I'm kind of leaning towards Arnold Allen in this spot. He's a slight dog. I think this number's been beaten down to a pick'em at this point. 18-1. Just tough to go against a kid that looks like he does. Coming off a decision win over Sodiq Yusuff, that speaks volumes to me. I think very highly of Sodiq. And then running through a guy like Dan Hooker. I know Dan may be a bit of damaged goods at this point, but nobody except Chandler put Dan Hooker away like that. So I'm kind of looking at him maybe getting the win here. This is a pick. This is not a bet. I think this fight is going to be very competitive. Calvin Kattar's too good for me to simply wad up and throw in the garbage can at this point. I think he'll make adjustments. I think he'll make improvements. His hand speed, his boxing is something that I respect very, very highly. I do think we're going to get a very close competitive fight here, Dan. So probably not one from a money line side that I'm overly interested in betting. I will lean ever so slightly to Arnold Allen. What about yourself?
I mean, listen, man. There's certain guys that are my money trains, whether we talk about the Jamal Hills, whether we talk about the Bilal Muhammads. And I hope y'all keep disrespecting my boy Bilal Muhammad.
That's right.
Who's won like fucking 10 of his last 11 or something. If you've been betting Bilal Muhammad, you've been laughing all the way to the bank. So I hope y'all keep calling him boring. I hope y'all keep, trashing him. And I keep getting dog odds against Luque, dog odds against Wonder Boy, dog odds against Brady, who's completely unproven. So keep disrespecting Bilal for me because I love it. And then Jamal Hill's one of my guys. You know who else is one of my guys? Arnold Allen. I've been riding this train since day one. I mean, the dog odds against Makwan Amirkhani. I think it was only like minus 200 against Nick Lentz. The Gilbert Melendez fight was a max bet against Dan Hooker. I got it at plus 110. The only time I didn't bet him against Sodiq Yusuff because, the regard I hold Sodiq Yusuff in, man. And goddamn, like that fight was like a serious high-level prospect showdown. And listen, let me give my credit to Calvin Kattar, man. I mean, ever since he came into the UFC, I told y'all, do not parlay Andrei Fili at minus 300 against Calvin Kattar when he first came into the UFC. Calvin Kattar, one of the best jabs in the featherweight division, that step through right hand, how he truly commits to it. Now he's, rounding out parts of his stand-up in terms of you're seeing more elbows these days, some spins. The kicking game, when he decides to go to it, is there. He'll mix in the occasional takedown. He's a well-rounded MMA fighter in the top 5 of his division. So nothing but respect. And the guy's just got that Boston strong mentality, man. I mean, This guy, Calvin Kattar, is willing to dig deep. And I mean, he could have looked for any way out in that Max Holloway fight, and he didn't, man. I mean, the guy has something you can't buy. He's got true heart, true grit. So he's got all my respect. I just kind of think that we're getting to a point now where Calvin Kattar eats a lot of shots, man. And it all started with that Jeremy Stephens fight, in my opinion. Since that Jeremy Stephens fight, not that I've necessarily seen a decline. I've seen a trend of, I mean, he's been absorbing so many strikes in all those fights. I feel like the Dan Ige fight was a lot closer than it should have been. The Max Holloway fight, I mean, most significant strikes landed in UFC history, was uncomfortable to watch at times. The Giga fight was a great bounce back, but he still ate over 128 significant strikes in that fight. And I'm not going to discredit that great performance, but if you want to actually want to be honest about what we saw, Giga gassed out after one takedown attempt. You know, Calvin took him down one time. Giga was completely fatigued for the rest of that fight, and they kind of had a flat-footed, you know, pocket brawl, which is great. It was fun to watch, and props to Calvin for getting back on track. But in that last fight against Emmett, despite who he scored it for, I saw a little bit more gun shyness. And I say that he still landed 130 significant strikes. He also ate over 100 significant strikes. Last three fights, he's eaten 100 for last three fights he's eaten 445 significant strikes against Max, 128 against Giga, 107 against Emmett, and these are a lot. Emmett and Giga are not soft hitters, and Max, you know, he might not be the hardest hitter, but 445 strikes to the dome, that'll do a number on you. And what I like about this kid, Allen, is he's just slick, he's just smart. Great footwork. Might not have the same output as Kattar, but when he lets his hands go, he makes them count. A little bit more well-rounded, can mix in some takedowns, sneaky high kick, beautiful straight left. The clinch work is on point. I know there's been some criticism about him potentially slowing down the stretch. I mean, he's won all these decisions for the most part unanimously. It was just in the Sodiq fight. What you got to understand is, when you're having a grueling fight with lots of grappling exchanges against a guy with that Nigerian power and strength like Sodiq, a guy who, I mean, you see what happens when these other guys stand and bang with Sodiq Yusuff. They hit the deck usually, and it was Arnold Allen who was out there dropping Sodiq Yusuff. So I just like the well-roundedness. I've seen Arnold Allen go out there and tap out real grapplers like Mads Burnell in the third round. I've seen him go out there in the Gil Melendez fight. Yeah, I know Gil's washed, but I saw him land over 100 significant strikes in 3 rounds in that fight. I saw him go out there against Sodiq Yusuff, land takedowns and land 2 knockdowns. I saw him in there against Dan Hooker, who's historically durable, and get him out of there easily in the first round. So I think this kid's trending in the right direction. This is the biggest fight of his career. I line it to pick him, so I took the plus 110 odds on Alan Hooker. This is one of my money trains. Like I said, you give me these good odds on Bilal, Jamal Hill, and a guy like Arnold Allen, and I'm riding that to the bank, man. I mean, just like back in the day when I used to bet on Robert Whitaker and Max Holloway every single fight, the new school guys for me are the Jamals, the Bilals, the Arnold Allens, and I'm not stopping here, man. So I'm going to go with Arnold Allen to get the biggest win of his career against someone I truly respect in Calvin Kattar. And give me Arnold Allen dog odds. And I already did my spot. I already did my job. I bet it plus 110. Now it's minus 125. So it looks like I'm going to beat the closing line, which I'm actually really happy about as a gambler. So give me Arnold Allen here plus 110.
Yeah, this line is booking it, folks. Like when we started the show, Arnold Allen was plus 105, plus 110. He was even money at Superbook Sports when we kicked off. He's minus 115 now. So like the line is booking it towards Arnold Allen. And Dan, I absolutely respect the take, especially when you've got a guy that you can go to war with like that over and over and just continuously bag. You just ride it. Analysis or not, analysis be damned. That's Josh Emmett for me. Like that's why one of the reasons why I bet him at that big plus dog money on that last one. Man, like if you find somebody who is consistently profitable for you, you just stay on track with them. So I can't blame you whatsoever for taking that side, man. And especially at that plus money, you already did your job. You beat the line move. You're going to get the best of the number, and you can just sit back on your hands now and enjoy the fight. So props to you, my guy. It's with that kind of a speech, man, it's Arnold Allen or pass for me. I'm going to go ahead and stay off of this one for now. We'll see if I get to anything over by the end of the week, but Allen seems to be the guy with all the steam behind him. And I'm glad you brought that up, Dan. I was going to mention the accumulation of damage on Calvin Kattar. Nobody's been able to crack him just yet, but you can't keep taking that many shots. I don't care who you are. At a certain point, taking that many beatings, it's eventually going to take its toll on you. So I just got to ask you, Dan, is Arnold Allen going to be the first guy to knock out Calvin Kattar on Saturday?
That's a great question. I mean, that's a fantastic question. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But what I do know is that this guy can win decisions too. I mean, he was always criticized for just being a decision guy. Goes out there, drops Sodiq twice, goes out there, knocks out Hooker. And I'm not comparing Kattar to Hooker. Don't twist my words. Some people in the chat, like, please don't do that. I'm just saying that, you have to take your step up at some point in time. This is a step up. So I'm willing to wager that he rises to the occasion. But yeah, I mean, if Kattar is simply a level above, then give Kattar his props, man. I'm not one of these guys who loses a bet and writes a whole fucking paragraph and, oh, the judges, oh, this, oh, that. Like, nah, man, props to Kattar if he wins. That's all it is, man. But I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is, especially at dog odds on a guy who I've been riding this entire time. So let's get it.
I love it. I love it. Thank you very much, Dan. Folks, that is the show. We appreciate you being here with us. Don't forget to go ahead, like, share, subscribe. Do us that favor. I do want to go ahead and plug here real quick. Attitude MMA is having an event. If you didn't get your fill of MMA action on Saturday, check out this regional show that they are going to be having over at Spectation Sports. You can use promo code DIEHARD. It'll be in the description of the show here. After we get off, I'll add that in there for a 25% off of your subscription watching regional shows. They're doing a really cool thing. You can bet on these, and I've been assisting with the lines and things like that. So make sure you go check out those regional shows. Support those guys. It's a good way to research. We're going to see these boys in the UFC sooner than later. Dan, my guy, it was a quick one. I apologize for all the fallouts on this one and all the canceled, mixed up bouts. We'll do it again on a complete card, a bigger one next time, so we can have a little bit longer to talk and let the people know what you've got going on and where they can find you, where they can support you, and where your shows are going to be.
Well, it was short and sweet, but man, it's always a pleasure talking fights with you, Clint. So thank you so much for having me on, and also to your audience. I love the banter. I love the back and forth. We're allowed to agree. We're allowed to disagree, but as long as we're respectful, and it's just great that we show our passion for this sport, man. So I love it, and I truly appreciate you guys supporting Clint. And if you want to support me, my podcast is called Half the Battle, and Half the Battle is available anywhere podcasts are found. And then on Twitter, I'm at Best Fight Picks. And if you're interested in checking out my bets, if you go to MMA.tips/best fight picks, you can see my full record there. This year, I'm actually having my best year. Last year, I had my worst year, but this year, I'm having my best year, up 53 units with a 31% ROI. 31% ROI. October is almost over. So this is, I'm loving what's been going on this year. I really feel in tune. And I hope that continues this weekend. That would be very, very nice. So far, I got Josh Fremd and Arnold Allen, possibly going to move in on Cody Durden. We'll see what happens, but those are my two bets for now. And you just got to take it one event at a time. So again, you can find me at Half the Battle. That's my show. Best Fight Picks on Twitter. Clint, truly appreciate you. And all the fans truly appreciate y'all as well.
Thank you very much, Dan. We appreciate it. Hey, guys, like I've always said, I'm your local degenerate coming to talk some fights with you. Dan's one of these guys you need to pay attention to. So having one of the best years we've seen, very, very smart, knows the damn sport well. Support this guy. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much for jumping in the chat here with us this evening. We're going to let you go on that. As always, stick around here at Pub Sports Radio. We got all kinds of other shows, football, baseball, basketball, you name it. And of course, we'll be back on Thursday for the Total Takedown and the Undefeated post-weigh-in show on Friday. Love you guys. Get out there, kick some ass this week. And you know what? I was going to say happy Halloween. We can do that next week. We're going to have a Halloween freaking show. We'll see you guys next Monday. Love you guys. Let's roll.